Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. If you've ever thought, my life couldn't possibly unravel in under 4 minutes, then buckle up. Because mine did. At 6:43 p.m. on a Thursday, while holding a fire extinguisher. No, I'm not joking. I'm Grover. And yes, that's my real name. If that made you smile, don't worry, you'll stop smiling soon. I was on the 3rd floor of a client's office, checking their emergency systems. I work in building safety compliance. Not glamorous, I know, but I'm the guy who makes sure your sprinklers won't betray you mid-barbecue. I was scheduled to test the hall alarms and had just triggered the system when my phone buzzed. Nothing unusual, except the message on the screen wasn't for me. Or at least, it wasn't meant for me to see. It was from someone named Tanner, a name I didn't recognize, and it popped up in a preview window from my wife's iCloud, which syncs with our shared family account. It read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again, sexy?" I dropped the fire extinguisher. Literally dropped it. It rolled down the hallway and knocked over a mop bucket like it was some tragic slapstick comedy. But nothing about this was funny. Sexy? My wife? My Lorna? I stood there like someone had unplugged my brain. I stared at the message, waiting for it to go away. For the words to morph into a grocery list or a gym reminder or something that didn't feel like being punched behind the ribs. And then the second message came in. "I love how quiet you are when he's home. It's kind of hot. Dangerous." My vision went white for a second, like my body didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just shut down completely. I wasn't angry, not yet. I wasn't even sad. I was just disoriented, like waking up in a house you don't remember falling asleep in. I didn't test the alarms that day. I didn't even tell the front desk I was leaving. I walked straight out the building, got in my car, and sat there with the engine running and the windows rolled up, letting the suffocation set in. And that's when I made the worst decision of my life. I drove home early. I had no plan, no confrontation strategy. I just needed to see her, to look her in the eyes and confirm that it wasn't real. That maybe, please, this was some sick misunderstanding. But it wasn't. Because when I walked in the front door, I didn't hear music. I didn't hear the TV. I heard a laugh. A man's laugh. From upstairs. And hers. Soft. Guilty. Almost like she was trying not to be heard. I moved like a ghost. Silent. Slow. Barely breathing. I made it halfway up the stairs before the sound of a zipper stopped me in my tracks. That's when I knew. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't innocent. It was physical. And it had been going on long enough for him to get comfortable. I didn't burst in. I didn't yell. I walked back down the stairs, sat on the couch, and waited. Like a dog. Like a loser. And when she finally came down, with her hair tied back and that smug little glow she always swore was just from skincare, she froze. Eyes wide. Mouth half open. Like she'd seen a ghost. And all I said was, "You left your iCloud on." She didn't even deny it. She just sat down across from me, didn't blink, and whispered, "Oh my God." I nodded. And smiled. But not because I forgave her. Because in that exact moment, I knew something she didn't. She didn't just break my heart. She gave me the power to destroy hers. I wish I could tell you I exploded. That I stood up, pointed at her, and shouted something unforgettable. Something powerful. Something she'd remember for the rest of her life. But I didn't. I just sat there. Quiet. Still. Almost polite. Like a man who'd just discovered his life wasn't his anymore, but didn't want to make a mess of it on the way out. Lorna stood frozen at the base of the stairs. She looked ridiculous, barefoot, hair slightly messy, wearing the same hoodie I bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. The one that said Homebuddy Queen across the chest. It felt like a joke now. A costume. Something she'd kept just convincing enough for me to believe she still lived in this marriage while she was already halfway out the back door. "You left your iCloud on," I said again, this time more to myself than to her. She blinked, sat down slowly across from me like she wasn't sure if I was going to throw something or start crying. I didn't either. I just stared at her, trying to connect this version of her, this stranger, with the woman I used to trust so blindly. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she said. "What does that even mean? Supposed to happen like what? You mean I was supposed to stay late at work while you played house with some dude named Tanner in the bedroom where we used to talk about baby names?" I didn't say any of that, though. I just let the silence stretch out until it became its own language. Finally, she muttered, "Do you want to know everything?" I nodded. She took a breath like she was about to confess a war crime. "It started 3 months ago," she said. "After the promotion, I was staying late, and he was just there. We started joking, talking. It felt exciting, new. I didn't mean for it to become physical, but then it did. I still didn't speak, because honestly, I didn't care about the timeline or how it started. What killed me wasn't the physical part. It was the fact that someone else knew a version of her that I hadn't seen in over a year. Someone else got her attention, her laughter, her spontaneity, while I got cold dinners and half-hearted excuses about being tired. She kept talking, as if filling the room with words might drown out the truth. I felt invisible with you, Grover. Like you were just going through the motions, folding laundry, making lists, organizing the mail like it was a job interview. I needed something unpredictable. You know what's funny? I was predictable. I always made sure her car had gas before Mondays. I always taped the toothpaste cap because she left it open. I kept her favorite oat milk in stock, even when it meant driving to a different store. I was boring, but I was steady. And somehow, that made me the villain. When she finished talking, I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I wasn't hungry. I just needed space. A new room to absorb the weight of what I'd just heard. And that's when I saw it. A wine glass. 2 of them. Still wet. Still on the counter. She hadn't even washed the evidence. I picked one up, turned it in my hand. Lipstick on the rim. Not even my favorite kind. That one's his, she said softly behind me. I placed it down gently, like I was afraid I'd shatter. Maybe I was already shattered. I don't want him in my house again, I said. She nodded quickly, desperate, as if that one condition meant I was going to stay. I'll cut it off. It's already over, she said. He means nothing, Grover. You're my home. You always have been. That word. Home. She poisoned it. She burned it down, and now she wanted me to walk through the ashes like nothing ever happened. I turned back to her and finally asked the only question that mattered. Did you ever plan to tell me? She hesitated. And in that second of silence, everything inside me collapsed. Because I already knew the answer. No, she never planned to tell me. I couldn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. The silence in the house was louder than anything I'd ever heard. I lay on the couch because the bedroom, our bedroom, felt tainted. And I know that sounds dramatic. But you try resting your head where someone else had their hands on your wife just days earlier. It's like trying to fall asleep in the middle of a crime scene. Lorna didn't go back upstairs either. She stayed on the armchair all night, knees pulled to her chest, phone face down on the rug like it was some kind of bomb she was trying to defuse by ignoring it. I watched her from the corner of my eye, and for a few seconds, I almost forgot why we were here. She looked small, shaken, almost innocent, but I couldn't let myself fall for that illusion again. At 3:17 a.m., she broke the silence. Do you hate me? I stared at the ceiling. I don't know what I feel right now, I replied. But I do know I don't trust you. She let that hang in the air, like a weight she didn't want to catch. I'll do anything to fix this, she said. I'll go to therapy. We can go together. I'll quit my job. Block him. Change my number. Just don't give up on us. Us. She kept using that word like it still meant something. But I wasn't even sure what us was anymore. The version of our marriage she remembered seemed to be stitched together with denial and nostalgia. My version? It was full of skipped dinners, cold shoulders, and a woman who checked out long before she slept with someone else. And yet, I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to go through the mess of splitting furniture and bank accounts and holiday traditions. I didn't want to be that guy with the cheating wife, label like some pathetic punchline. So I did what weak men do. I said, we'll see. And that gave her just enough hope to start rewriting the story. The next day, she made breakfast. French toast, my favorite. But it tasted like cardboard. She talked to me like we were fine. She asked if I wanted to watch something together later. She wore the ring again. She smiled too much. Overcompensated. Played the role of devoted wife like it was community theater and I was the only audience member left. I almost said nothing. But then came the mistake. The catastrophic, irredeemable mistake. That afternoon, while she was showering, her phone lit up. And for the record, I didn't go looking. I wasn't snooping. But when someone's phone buzzes 3 times in a row with the same name, Tanner, you stop pretending you're above checking. The first message? I can't believe you ghosted me. I thought you were different. Second, don't pretend you didn't enjoy it. You begged me not to stop. Third, if you're choosing him over me now, you're even more fake than I thought. I swear to God I forgot how to breathe. She told me it was over. She told me he meant nothing. She told me she cut him off. Liar. I walked to the bathroom door, knocked once. She cracked it open, wrapped in a towel, her hair soaked, her eyes wide like she'd just seen the devil outside. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice calm, but her eyes already pleading. I held up the phone, not even bothering to read it out loud. "You said it was over," I said. She didn't try to deny it. She just whispered, "He won't stop messaging me." I blocked him. He used another number. I swear, Grover. I swear to God I haven't talked to him. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the pit in my stomach was already filling up with acid, and once that feeling sets in, it doesn't go away. "Leave," I said. Her face dropped. "What?" "I need you out of the house. I don't care where you go. Just not here." "Grover, please. Don't do this. I'm telling you the truth. Leave." And for once, she listened. She left in silence. No suitcase. Just her purse, car keys, and the cold echo of a door that used to mean home. The silence after she left didn't feel peaceful. It felt radioactive. Every room in the house buzzed with memories I suddenly didn't trust. I sat in the kitchen staring at the untouched French toast on the counter, cold and mocking. My hands were shaking, not with rage, but with something worse, uncertainty. Because when someone lies to you once, you question everything they've ever said. Every smile, every "I love you," every kiss goodbye, it all becomes suspect. I didn't know where she went. She didn't text, didn't call. But honestly, I didn't care. I needed space to think, to feel something other than humiliation. I spent that night walking in circles, literally pacing the living room floor like some maniac. I kept replaying everything. The iCloud messages, the wine glasses, the stupid half-hearted apology. My thoughts started to feel like static. I even opened my laptop and typed, "How to tell if your wife is still cheating," into the search bar like some broken teenager. And that's when the next bomb dropped. An email notification popped up. Subject line, "You don't know the half of it." No sender name. Just a Gmail address that looked like someone smashed their keyboard. The message inside was short. "Grover, I wasn't going to get involved, but I saw the look on your face that day. You deserve the truth. Ask Lorna about the hotel in Shepherd's Creek. March 17th. Room 408. Don't let her lie again." That's all it said. No signature. No threats. No demands. Just that. I stared at the screen so long my vision blurred. My heart felt like it stopped beating for a moment, then slammed into overdrive. March 17th. That was the weekend she told me she was on a girls' wellness retreat. She even brought home those overpriced lavender bath bombs and showed me blurry selfies of her and Brina in matching robes. I felt sick. I dug through my text history. Sure enough, March 17th, she sent me a picture of a beach sunset and said, "Thinking of you. Wish you were here." I remember feeling touched by that message. Like a fool. And now someone, some stranger, was telling me that exact night she was in a hotel room with someone else. I didn't know what to do. I called the hotel. I almost hung up before the receptionist answered. But when she picked up, I swallowed hard and forced my voice to stay steady. "Hi. I'm looking to confirm a past stay. March 17th. Room 408. There was a pause. Then keys clicking. "Do you have a guest name?" "Yes. Lorna Beckett." More typing. Then another pause. "Yes, we do show that name for room 408. One night. Checked in with a +1 under the same reservation." My throat tightened. Was the +1's name Tanner? "I'm sorry, sir. I can't disclose that." "Right," I said, then hung up before I could humiliate myself further. I sat there, barely breathing. She lied to me in real time. Held her phone in one hand and his hand in the other. She lied while I was telling our neighbor we might start trying for kids next year. I wanted to scream. But instead, I cried. The kind of cry you don't come back from in one night. A few hours later, I did something I never thought I would. I messaged the mystery email back. "Who are you?" No reply. Not that day. Not the next. But the damage was done. Because now I had confirmation, not just suspicion. I didn't need her to admit it. I didn't need a confession. I had a date. A room number. A ghost who knew more than I did. And most of all, I had a choice to make. Do I keep pretending I could fix something so rotten it had termites in the foundation? Or do I start figuring out who I am without her? Lorna came back 2 days later like a ghost returning to its favorite haunting spot. She didn't knock. Just opened the door slowly. The way you do when you're not sure if the house is empty or if the person inside is about to unleash something nuclear. I was sitting on the edge of the bed when she walked in, phone in hand, bags under her eyes, mascara smudged just enough to look like sorrow, or an act. I didn't speak. Neither did she at first. She set her keys down on the counter like nothing had happened, like we were just another couple after a mild argument, not a broken pair trying to pretend the cracks weren't already splitting everything in half. Eventually, she asked, "Can we talk?" And I nodded, even though I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready because I knew something she didn't. I'd already seen her the night before. She didn't know I had followed her. It happened by accident, really. I couldn't sleep. I was spiraling, restless, angry, and nauseous from all the unanswered questions. Around 11:45 p.m., I saw a payment notification pop up from our shared banking app. She'd used her card at a gas station 15 miles outside of town. It didn't make sense. There were 3 gas stations within a 5-minute radius from wherever she claimed she was staying. So I drove. I told myself I just needed answers. Closure. But the second I saw her car parked outside that dingy roadside motel near Route 18, something inside me snapped. I waited. Not long. About 10 minutes later, she walked out of room 12, alone. She looked around like she knew she was being watched. Like guilt had weight, and she could feel it pressing down on her. She didn't see me. I made sure of that. She got in her car, started it, and just sat there for a moment. Then, out of nowhere, she slammed her fists against the steering wheel. Twice. Hard. Then cried into her hands. I should have felt something. Anger. Satisfaction. Pity. But I didn't. I just felt cold. Detached. Like I was watching a stranger spiral out in a drama I didn't audition for. And now, 12 hours later, here she was, sitting on the edge of our kitchen chair, pretending like her tears were enough to rebuild everything she'd knocked down. She started talking fast, stumbling over her words like someone trying to outrun the truth. I messed up. I know that. And I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. I panicked. I didn't want to lose you. But I didn't know how to tell you the truth without destroying what we had left. I let her speak. I even let her cry. But I didn't tell her I'd seen her at the motel. I didn't tell her I knew this wasn't some one-time mistake, but an entire double life she'd been rehearsing in the shadows. Instead, I asked one question. Just one. Why him? She blinked, like it was a question she hadn't prepared for. And maybe that was the first honest moment I'd seen from her in months. I don't know, she whispered. It wasn't about him. He listened. He noticed things. When I cut my hair, he complimented it. When I talked about books, he asked questions. With you, it felt like we were stuck. Like we were just surviving. I swallowed hard. So, instead of surviving with the man who loves you, you started living with someone who doesn't even know your middle name? That hit her. I could see it. But it wasn't enough. Because truthfully, nothing would ever be enough. There was no apology big enough to unring that bell. No amount of regret could erase the image of her walking out of that motel in the same sweatshirt she used to wear when we made pancakes on Saturdays. And then she said something that made everything worse. I can end it. For real. Right now. Just say the word, and I'll block him in front of you. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about blocking a number or deleting a contact. This was about betrayal so deep it rewired the way I looked at her. At us. At myself. I was starting to realize that maybe this wasn't just about what she did, but about who I became trying to hold on to someone who was already gone. So I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "You don't need me to say the word. If you wanted to end it, you would have done it long before I found out." She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Because in that moment, we both understood the same brutal truth. She had already made her choice. And now, it was my turn to make mine. 3 days passed. We didn't talk much. We shared the same house, the same air, the same ghosts, but nothing else. She spent most of her time in the guest room, and I could hear her crying at night, but I didn't go to her. Maybe part of me wanted to see how long she'd sit in her own mess before realizing no one was coming to clean it up for her. And maybe part of me wanted her to feel what I had felt, helpless, humiliated, disposable. I'd started packing some things. Slowly, quietly. I didn't even know where I was going, but staying in that house felt like trying to breathe underwater. Every corner reminded me of the life I thought we had, the life she set on fire. Then, just as I was starting to imagine an exit, the final nail drove itself into the coffin. It was late, around midnight. I was scrolling through my phone in bed trying to distract myself from the nausea that had become a permanent part of my evenings. That's when a message popped up from a number I didn't recognize. No words, just an image. A blurry photo. At first, I thought it was a mistake. It looked like a selfie taken in a dimly lit room. But then I tapped on it, zoomed in, and my stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. It was her, Lorna, lying on a motel bed, her hair messy, her shoulder bare, lips parted like she'd been mid-laugh. And next to her, Tanner, shirtless, holding the camera, smiling, like they were proud of this moment, like they wanted to keep it, like it meant something. I stared at the image for maybe 5 straight minutes, not moving, not blinking. My heart didn't even race, it just stalled. There was no ambiguity, no context to twist, no defense she could possibly give. It wasn't from months ago. Her hairstyle was recent. Her nails matched what she'd worn last week. This wasn't a memory. It was ongoing. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, in total silence, feeling the full weight of stupidity collapse on top of me. Because I almost believed her. I almost started thinking we had a chance. I left the phone screen on and walked downstairs. She was at the kitchen table, headphones in, laptop open, probably watching some trash reality show to distract herself from reality. I set the phone down on the table in front of her and watched her face as she looked at the photo. She didn't gasp. She didn't ask who sent it. She just closed her eyes like someone who'd already surrendered to the inevitable. "I didn't know he took that," she said, barely audible. I stepped back, hands on my hips, every nerve in my body screaming to do something. Yell, break something, demand an answer. But I just whispered, "You told me it was over." And she nodded. I thought it was. I told him it had to be. But I kept going back. I don't know why. Her voice cracked. It was like I couldn't stop. I kept saying I'd end it. And then I'd see him again, and it all just happened. "You do know why?" I snapped. "You chose him. Over and over." She stood now, tears rolling down her face, mascara bleeding into the corners of her mouth. "It wasn't about love. I never loved him." "You didn't need to love him," I said. "You just needed to not destroy me. And you couldn't even manage that." We stood there in silence for what felt like hours. And then she said something I'll never forget. "I kept thinking you'd leave, and when you didn't, I convinced myself I wasn't doing anything wrong enough to lose you." That hit like a truck. She didn't stay because she loved me. She stayed because I tolerated the damage. Because I made it easy for her to keep lying. I walked away from her then, past the living room, past the hallway photos of our fake happy moments, past the wedding portrait we still hadn't taken down. I shut the door behind me, sat in the driver's seat of my car, and just sat. I didn't drive anywhere. I didn't need to. Because sitting in that dark driveway, I finally understood something. I hadn't lost her. I never really had her in the first place. I didn't sleep again, not even for a moment. I stayed in the car the entire night, engine off, phone face down, heart beating like a broken drum. There's a certain silence that only happens in the middle of the night when your life has fallen apart. You stop thinking in full sentences. Your memories don't make sense. Even the good ones feel contaminated, like they're flickering in and out of someone else's movie. I didn't cry. I wish I had. At least crying would have felt like doing something. Instead, I sat there watching the windows fog up, wondering what kind of man stays after all this. Wondering if I was weak for not walking away the moment I found out, or if I was just human. Because despite everything, some twisted part of me still wanted her to wake up and run out into the driveway begging me to come back inside. She didn't. The sun came up and I still hadn't moved. It wasn't until nearly 8 a.m. that I finally turned the key and pulled out of the driveway. But I didn't go far. Just drove to a small park a few blocks down, sat under the same oak tree we once had our 3rd anniversary picnic beneath. I tried to picture that day, her smile, the way she'd called me her forever, but I couldn't see it clearly anymore. It was like trying to remember a dream after someone woke you too fast. And then my phone buzzed. Not a text. A voicemail. From Lorna. I didn't want to listen to it. I hovered over the delete option more than once. But in the end, I hit play. Her voice was shaking. Raw. Not the performative kind of sad she'd pulled on me before, but the voice of someone who had nothing left to hide. "Grover, if you're still listening, I need to say this. Not because I think it'll fix anything. I know it won't. But I need to tell you what I was too much of a coward to say before." She paused for a long time. I could hear her sniffle. Then she continued. "I didn't just cheat. I fell for him. That's the part one couldn't admit. I kept saying it was meaningless so I could protect myself from what that meant. But it wasn't meaningless. It was real. And that's why I kept going back. I froze. She had fallen for him. All this time, she'd clung to the idea that it meant nothing, that it was just lust, an escape, something temporary. But now, hearing her say it out loud, she loved him. It ripped through me like barbed wire. I think I kept you around, she said, because you were safe, because you were good. And part of me hated myself every day for hurting someone who actually loved me. But the other part, the selfish part, like that you stayed. You always stayed, even when you shouldn't have. She choked back a sob. I don't deserve you, Grover. I never did. I hope someday you find someone who looks at you and actually means it. Who doesn't lie. Who doesn't destroy everything beautiful just because they're too broken to be honest. And then, the voicemail ended. No goodbye. No I love you. Just silence. I listened to it twice. Then a third time. Not because I needed to hear it again, but because I didn't trust myself to believe it the first 2 times. She loved him. That changed everything. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't a mistake. It was a replacement. I drove back home with my hands shaking on the wheel. When I opened the door, she was sitting at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of coffee like it was a shield. She didn't look at me. I didn't sit down. I heard your message, I said flatly. She nodded. I figured. I didn't ask her why she finally told the truth. I didn't ask her how long she'd been in love with him. I didn't ask anything, because none of it mattered anymore. The truth wasn't a relief. It was a guillotine. You know what hurts most? I said after a long pause. It's not that you fell for him. It's that you let me sit across from you every day, still trying, still believing, while you were already gone. Her eyes filled with tears again, but I didn't care anymore. I had used up all my empathy. I'm moving out, I told her. I don't want a long goodbye. I'll be gone by the end of the week. She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, then closed it, and just nodded. As I turned and walked upstairs, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't sadness I felt. It wasn't even rage. It was freedom, and that, somehow, scared me more than anything she'd ever done. I didn't rush to move out. I didn't slam doors or throw clothes into garbage bags. That's not who I am. Instead, I spent the next few days quietly packing the life I had built, piece by piece, while she tiptoed around the house like a guest. We barely spoke. The silence wasn't angry anymore. It was just tired, worn out, like the end of a movie that had dragged on too long, and everyone in the theater had already left. On my last night there, I walked into what used to be our bedroom and stood in the doorway for a few minutes. I didn't go in. I just looked. The dresser, the unmade bed, the lamp with the broken switch we never fixed. For a moment, I wondered if things could have gone differently. If I'd noticed sooner. If she had spoken up earlier. If I had. But the truth is, some stories aren't meant to be repaired. They're meant to be released. The next morning, I loaded the last box into my car, took one final breath in that driveway, and drove away without looking back. I didn't have a clear plan. Just a small rental on the other side of town, some savings, and an overwhelming amount of time with myself. But something strange happened in that solitude. I started healing. Slowly, clumsily, quietly. There were nights I still missed her. Not the version of her that betrayed me, but the version I thought she was. The one I believed in. I mourned a woman who maybe never existed in the way I imagined. And that was hard, but necessary. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I played music again. I called up old friends I'd pushed aside. I even adopted a scruffy dog from a shelter who stares at me like I hung the moon. His name is Pluto. He drools a lot and chews on everything, but he never lies. And right now, that's enough. Lorna reached out a few weeks ago. A long message. Apologies. Regret. A brief update on her life. She said Tanner moved away. That she's not with anyone. That she's working on herself. I didn't respond. Not out of hatred, but because I've finally learned that closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from the moment you stop needing their permission to let go. And I let go. Completely. Funny thing is, I don't feel broken anymore. I feel awake. Like I've stepped out of a fog and started remembering who I was before I convinced myself I wasn't enough. And maybe that's the gift in all of this. Not the pain, not the betrayal, but the clarity that came after. I survived something I thought would destroy me. And in the end, it didn't. It set me free.